Hey y'all, my name is Laura Ann Allen, and I am very excited to be diving into the Savvy's Christian Guide to Life. It's a book that I'm been reading with you all, and if this is a new video for you to follow along, follow along. Make sure you click subscribe on my YouTube channel, but also make sure that you follow along on my social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. But let's go ahead and get started because I want to not make this such a long video. Um, we're a little bit change of scenery in my home. I'm in my dining room because it's Operation Santa in the office. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in, okay? So the question that I'm going to be reading in this guide is it says, can my Christian worldview really make a difference? Okay. So, one of the verses in this book says, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That's Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. So the real life question um, in this book says, how can my Christian worldview make a difference in society when there are so many other stronger voices of influence? Are the other opposing voices stronger or just more pervasive? It is easy to take a look at our culture and feel defeated in turning the cultural tide toward a just moral place to raise our families. Most Christians don't have a public platform to carry their convictions and beliefs, yet we know we can build a biblical mandate to be salt and light in our world. When our culture is opposed to God's law, as Christians, we know there's consequences and society will suffer. How do we make a difference? The real life case study question, the real life case study in this question is, one of the greatest moral achievements in society happened in the British Empire during the end of the 18th century. William Wilberforce recognized the grave sin of his country, the slave trade, the empire's livelihood. As a politician, he faced the immense odds and criticized and despised. Slavery was a moral accepted practice and vital to the economy. His opponents were politicians, powerful businessmen, national heroes, and the royal family. Wilberforce made many enemies during his time in Parliament, but he showed remarkable perseverance. For nearly 50 years, he fought to overturn slavery. He was willing to be called a fool for the sake of Christ. William Wilberforce understood that his faith had to matter to more than just himself. At the age of 25, he became a Christian and wanted to go into ministry full time. But through prayer and counsel, he realized God's plan was for him to pursue a career in politics and to champion the freedom of the oppressed. In his journal, he wrote, my walk is a public one. Wilberforce knew that he had tried and make a difference, and God would guide through the battles he would face. So, the questions in this real life case study is, number one, do you struggle with ways to influence the community around you? What are some wrongs you see in your community that you would like to change? Question number two says, what can we learn from the example of William Wilberforce and making our faith a public matter? Do you feel, this is question three, it says, do you feel like you have bought into the cultural lie that one life cannot make a difference? Reflect on some of the fears you might have speaking boldly about your faith. The fourth question is, read Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. Think about some ways that you are a light to your neighbor next door. Think about some ways that you would enable you to be a louder voice among your non-Christian friends. It's crazy that it's not crazy, it's God, but I made a post today on my Libby June boutique business page, but also on my personal page about me officially closing the doors of my boutique. Okay. I do like a soft relaunch in May, but honestly, y'all, like my heart just is not into it. Like I feel like I can serve so many others, in so many different ways other than just being a boutique owner. And, I'm very proud of myself for officially like letting that go. And that will be closing in 2026. But, I feel like these questions kind of like align right now in my life because, I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I was nervous reading this book out loud to you all, through, I got a piece of hair in my mouth. Hold on. Reading this book out loud because, again, I'm new to this kind of book, and so I want to take y'all along the journey of me, learning and reflecting, and just what I can gather from this as well. So it says, I'm gonna go back to the first question. It says, "Do you struggle with ways to influence the community around you?" I felt like before this year, I feel like I did in some ways, but some ways I feel like I don't, because I truly do believe that I do have a gift of serving others, and I do have a gift of my voice, uh and making my voice me be more about boldly in like my real and rawness of just my walk in my life. And so um there are things that I felt like like I did struggle with, but the more and more that I talk about my faith with Jesus Christ, and the more that I take y'all along the journey of my life and motherhood and being a wife and a business owner, and helping my husband, because he's a business owner too. Like it just, I don't know, like I feel more confident, I guess I would say. And so I'm excited to see where the chapter of my life and the boldness of my life will lead going into year 2026. And so I do feel like I'm kind of making my faith a public matter by taking y'all along the journey. And if you follow me on Facebook, you do see that I have been creating some shorts on YouTube. And, I got a comment on one of my shorts, and I was getting kind of emotional, but it was a comment. It was like, what? And so if you're on YouTube and you're seeing my shorts and they may not make sense to you, go into the lives and go watch my lives, because they're connected to the lives that I do, and I just clip them to be posted on my TikTok and to be posted on my YouTube channel. So you're going to be seeing a lot of me. But again, it's me being more in the public eye, of me being more bolder in my faith, and me being more in a public eye of serving others the way that I know how, to the best of my ability. And I'm excited. Like I have the Raw and the Redeemed podcast, and I did episode 1 already. That was super cool. We're getting ready to do episode 2 here soon. With the holidays though, y'all, with us being moms, and some of us are wives, and it's a lot. So we're juggling, we're balancing, but we're gonna be doing more, don't worry. So if you love the first episode, go like it, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, go follow Spotify, all the things, okay? Because again, I feel like in my life right now, I am making my faith more of a public matter, especially in my studies and especially in like what I'm reading. And so let's dive into the real life lesson. Okay. So usually the only time we find Christians or churches featured in the news is when scandal is involved. Rarely do we hear the secular airwaves promote the positive influence Christians have on society. This anti Christian sentiment that we often feel as calls many to retreat and not believe that one voice could ever make a difference. But as Christians, we know in God's economy, one life can make all the difference in the world. Though the world is often quick to make Christianity out to be foolish, God's truth has proven to actually work in the laws of society. When we come to Christ, we find personal restoration, but this transformation should also spill out into our own life setting. God's truth has the power to create civilized society, persevere freedom, and soften the hearts of the hardest criminal. That is why we have to share the hope we have been given. Our faith was not meant to be some kind of private blessing, but is to overflow to others, giving society a hope and a future as well. We are co laborers with Christ in transforming all aspects of culture, the arts, the education, the media, politics, and science. All of life is sacred, and God wants us to be available to speak of His truth. Take, for example, the life of William Wilberforce. He understood his value and identity, are rooted in Christ. There is a vast difference in a Christian worldview about the worth of one life than that and that of the postmodern view. The Christian view sees the intrinsic value of worth in all of life. Nothing is too small or insignificant in God's eyes. But for the average modern thinker, only the famous rich or person of status has hope of making the world. Wilberforce understood his potential to fight cultural evils, even as just one man living out his conviction that slavery was the evil of his day that had to be confronted no matter how many times his efforts failed. Christians especially needed to realize the power of Christ at work in them and not succumb to believing their life has no divine purposes. If we believe we can make no difference, we can find ourselves easily in a slothful position. Dorothy Sayers warned against complacency and sloth and said, "The sin which believes in nothing, cares for nothing, seeks to know nothing, interferes with nothing, enjoys nothing, loves nothing, hates nothing, finds purpose in nothing, lives for nothing, and only remains alive because there is nothing it would die for." So, yes, absolutely, the Christian voice matters. No matter how small or seemingly insignificant, Christians need to pray for courage and step out into the public square to be heard and see what God does with the efforts. Real life strategy. Never underestimate God's plan for your life and how He can use you right where you are today. Check to make sure that you have not bought into the cultural lie that one voice cannot make a difference. Pray about how you might live out the convictions God has placed on your heart. And then it says, think about someone you know whose courage and persistence made a difference in their community. Thank God for their example and heroes of their faith of our faith that do not spur on us to do good works. The real life wisdom is you have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, art, civilization, these are mortal and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. That is from William Wilberforce. And then it tells you savvy additional resources, and it tells you all the resources that I read in the real life case study. And so the let's go really quickly because we're only 14 minutes in. So in this chapter, in this question, let's go back to the question. The question was, can my Christian worldview really make a difference? So the the fourth question was read Matthew chapter 5 verses 13 through 16. Think about some ways that you are a light to your neighbor next door. Then think about some ways that you would enable you to be a louder voice among your non-Christian friends. Okay, so it's saying to dive into Matthew chapter 5. So we're going to go into Matthew chapter 5. And I will say, I'm kind of proud of myself. I am starting to like know where chapters are. I'm not a Bible scholar. Just I'm not, but I'm learning where things are at. All right. So we're gonna dive into so Matthew chapter 5. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm trying to find my question again. Alex is taking a nap, so we got to make sure that I stay semi-quiet in the dining room. Okay, chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. So what does that read? It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It would be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Don't misunderstand why I have come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings or of the prophets. No, I came to accomplish their purpose. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not even the smallest detail of God's law will disappear until its purpose is achieved. So if you ignore the least commandment and teach others to do the same, you would be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But anyone who obeys God's law and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. 20. But I warn you, unless your righteousness is better than the righteousness of the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so that is Matthew chapter 5, and I went a little bit further and went all the way to verse 20. But, one of the things that I, I see here it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It would be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless." In the season that I walked the last couple of years, in my life with business, in my life with being a mom or becoming a mom and then being a mom, one of the things that I will say is that, it's I didn't give my life to Christ until I became a mom. um, and so going before my walk with Christ, like I really don't know how I did life without him, to be honest. I don't know how I did life without him. I don't know. And so, but I will say is that, this year was a challenging year for me. And it taught me honestly how to just be still. It taught me more about gratitude. It taught me more about thankfulness. It taught me more about fasting. I've never fasted ever. It taught me more about being present, being in his presence. 2025 taught me that, sometimes you just have to let go of things that do not serve you anymore, whether that's a person, whether that's a thing, whether that's a business, whatever the case may be. You just, I've learned to let go. I've learned that stillness is sometimes the best medicine to a busy life. And I've learned um, to pray more. I've learned to rest more. I've learned that with praying and resting and being still in his presence has taught me what's important for me and my family, what's important in my life, what's important in my routine, as a mama, as a businesswoman, as a stay-at-home mom, working part-time as a waitress. Like and again, I'm made out of flesh. I make mistakes all the time. And I'm actually going to go into a little story with y'all really quickly because we're only almost 20 minutes in. But, I was working yesterday and, there are just some people that you just cannot make happy. Like, there are just some people out there that just literally will complain about everything. And the old Laura Ann would have probably said more hurtful, mean things, um, in the sense that, again, I I was taught, like, again, you treat you treat others how you want to be treated, but if someone treats you wrong or bad, like, you don't take no crap from them and you give it back to them. And so I caught myself yesterday, like, almost like spitting out, like, things that it's like that's made out of flesh. But I stopped myself and I walked away, and I came back and I tried to make the situation better, but unfortunately in this case, it wasn't going to make a difference. And I had to remind myself that I don't know what this person is going through, but I had to remind myself to let it go, to walk away, to let it go. It is what it is. And I had more peace with that than anything. Okay. It doesn't reflect me as a person, it doesn't reflect me as a Christian, it doesn't reflect me as um because one thing that I will tell y'all is that in my walk with Christ, and one things that I battle with is, I do have a very short temper, and I'm really trying to give it to God, and it's working. Sometimes it doesn't, but most time it does. I'm learning to not speak so quickly anymore, and I'm learning how to listen even if it doesn't make sense to me, and so these are the challenges that I feel like I've rised above, and it doesn't make me better than you. But there are things that I am trying to do better with in my own life, in my own being, whether um as a Christian, but also as a wife, as a mother. And one of the things that I will say in a reflection of this year is I really am proud of the baby steps that I made this year. I'm proud of the doors closed, that did close for me, but I'm very proud of the blessings that opened, because I just took one foot in front of the other, and I was like, "You know what? Let's do it. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be stretching. God is stretching me." But I will say this is that God knows the capacity that I can hold versus my flesh. And so I'm willing to listen and willing to lead in with that. And I don't really know, like, I do know what the what next is, like, here in the next, like, few months, but I don't know what the what next is, like, within, like, next year, like, going into, like, sometimes people are like, "What's your 5-year goal? What's your 10-year goal?" I'm like, "Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna take one foot in front of the other, and we're gonna go with it, and we're gonna just dive into whatever we can that will bring more peace, less stress, less anxiety, and bring joy back into my life, um, and bring just peace into my life. And I've had that. I mean, I've had peace in my life since leaning in with Christ, but you know the world wants us to be distracted. Okay. The world wants us to be distracted. And when we doom scroll on social media and we get so caught up on what everybody else is doing, and we stop focusing on what we need or what we want, and we stop focusing again on um when we stop focusing in the word, then that the enemy is distracting us. And we kind of forget, like, really, like, the groceries that are in the refrigerator, the heat in our house, the lights in our house, like, the littlest things we forget that that is gratitude to be thankful for. Your bill might be late, but it'll get paid. Be grateful for that. you know? And I've learned to be more laid back, honestly, about things than I used to be. And my husband sometimes looks at me and is like, "How are you so chill about this?" Like, how, and I'm just like, we will make a way. We will make a way." But anyway, so it's almost 30 minutes into the podcast, but into the live. But thank y'all so much for tuning in, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all. See you later.